Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Life According to Nikki. Today we have Mykel with us. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on.
Are we kidding? Oh my gosh, I love that. Let's just start up at the top with
Yes.
who you are. Give us a full bio, however much information you would like.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like there's so much. Like I never really know where to start, but my name is Mykel. I live in Utah and I got married a few years ago. My husband's name is Peyton. He works for a company from home. So we get to hang out a lot. I work from home as well, running the business. Yeah, my background really started off I really, as a young kid, was very, very inspired by fashion, but in Michigan, where I grew up, wasn't really poppin' fashion, if you can imagine that. So I ended up going to hair school, as one does, and it just kind of felt like maybe a little step into the fashion world. So I started off in hair school, and then I finished that, and I sort of just went through the motions, started at a salon. And then I went on a mission for the LDS Church in Boise, Idaho, which was very humbling, but also amazing. I loved it, but it was like, oh, okay, Boise, but it was really, really cool. So I did that. And then when I came back, I kind of still dabbled in hair. I mean, I always worked in hair, but I had a little bit more inspiration, or I guess I should say I was more inspired by education. So kind of started diving into that. And then I started working in hair as a teacher and started doing like kind of some public speaking and then with that, I started doing like traveling to like fashion week. So like New York Fashion Week, London Fashion Week. And that's kind of where that taste for fashion started to come back, where I'm like, this is what I want. And it was like I kind of got caught up in hair and I'd been so invested in it that it kind of reminded me how much fashion had always been really the goal. After that, I ended up moving to Utah. I was working as the director of Jay-Z Academy here in Utah. It's pretty new. And I was working, and then I just was like, okay, it's time to start the business. And I always had kind of expected that I would start the business. So when I moved to Utah, I was very intentional, just like you and I talked about at the beginning, like about how Utah is so it's the place to be if you want to start a business. So I was very intentional with moving here. But yeah, then I basically was like, all right, it's time to just take the next step. And we launched the clothing line. And that's what I do full time. I still teach a little bit. I don't know if anybody knows this about me besides like my family, but I actually teach seminary. Like I just do some substitute teaching for like some of my friends and people that I know. I teach seminary. So, which weirdly enough took like 2 years. Like it's very hard to do. Like
It
becoming
is.
a teacher is like 5 years, but even just to sub, it took me like 2 years. But I wanted something that kind of kept me grounded and something to kind of help me balance my crazy schedule now. So I don't do that a lot, maybe like 1 or maybe 2 days a week. But yeah, that's a little tidbit about me. So that's really obviously a lot of summarizing, but that's kind of the rough draft version of like my life. And so now, yeah, we live here and I run the business full time and it's just busy. It's chaos.
Oh,
Chaos.
that was absolute perfection for a bio. These are my rapid fire follow-up questions because
Oh, yeah.
the majority of the pod today is going to be talking about your company. We're
Yes.
gonna get into that. So like don't you worry.
Yes.
We're gonna circle back to that. But just
Yeah.
as you were talking, first
Mhm.
off, again, rapid fire, where did you meet your
Yeah.
husband?
So we met on a dating app in Utah. We met on a dating app, and the story is actually so funny. So maybe we'll tell. Maybe it's for another day. But the story is so funny because we had met. We had been talking, and I had just kind of came out of like a I'm done with dating forever. And he was like my last like swipe on this dating app. And he had messaged me and it was like 3 weeks before I replied. And I actually canceled, I think, our first 3 dates just because, you get burnt out. It's like, I'm done
Yeah.
with this. So I would just cancel. And I just was like, ugh. And finally, he asked me one last time and he told me, like, later, he was like, that was my last chance. I was like, if she cancels again, I'm done. And I ended up showing up. I was 15 minutes late. I almost canceled again. And if anybody's been in the trenches of dating, you get it. Like you get burnt out, you lose all hope. And it was like the last of the last of the last shred of hope for me with dating. And so I showed up and I was 15 minutes late and we talked for like our date was like 5 hours, which I could talk to I don't know, a brick wall. So for me, that was normal. But for my husband, he was like, oh my gosh, we hit it off. And I was actually kind of going on dates with this other guy. And so I left the date and that guy had called me and he's like, oh my gosh, where have you been? I haven't been able to get a hold of you for like 5 hours. And I was like, oh, I was just on a date. You know, we were like casual like that. And he's like, do I need to be worried about this guy? Like just joking. And literally my now husband is standing in the rearview mirror, like waving goodbye as I'm on the phone leaving the date and he's like waving. And I was like, I'm never going to see this guy again. And then we got married a year and a half, 2 years later. So yeah, it's a really cute story, but that's the summary. But yeah, we met on a dating app, the cliche, you know, the usual in 2025.
Oh my.
Well, the time it was 3, but yeah.
I see. I'm always, since I'm still single, I'm like always
Yeah.
looking for, tell me how you did it, girl.
Oh, I used to do that too. I would like, yes, I literally like hold people at gunpoint. Like, how did you find but I met with my husband when I was 28 and I just feel like I really truly believe that God's in the details of a lot of that because it's like looking back, any day would have been too soon before the day it happened. Like any time both of us as people, like it really is so divine how it all comes together. And I spent a lot of years just being like, okay, that might not be for me, but it really happens.
No, and I love that. And I love that you say, you were 28 because I'm 27. I'll be 28 this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's different when it's coming from, a 20-year-old that's telling me like, girl, like it happens. It's like crazy. It just happens when you least expect it. I'm like, girl, you're 20.
And they're like still on their mom's phone plan. You're like, okay, you literally are 19. Like you waited for maybe 1 year. Like what's going on?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
So I can't relate to them as easily as I can. I'm like, okay, you know what? I will take
Oh
your
yeah.
advice. I will
Oh, I
listen
was
to you.
senior. Yeah. Yes, of
To Utah
course.
standards,
So,
for sure.
yes, totally. And living here, like moving here at 20, I was like, I'm 100. Like it was so weird, but yeah. But I feel like that was a long answer. You had more rapid question or
Yes.
fire. Sorry, I
Rapid
hope I didn't
fire.
cut you off on those.
Okay, here we go. Here's next. You said you did hair prior to the mission. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how often on the mission were you cutting other sisters' hair?
I don't think I ever shared that information with people
That was smart of you. That was very smart of
because
you.
I don't think I ever cut anyone's hair. I had one companion and she's still one of my good friends, Kara Johnson, but well, now it's not Johnson anymore, but it was one of my very good friends. I cut her hair. She had long, beautiful hair. And we were having a crisis. We were having a moment and we literally cut it like, I think it was like shorter than her chin. I think she's the only person whose hair I ever cut. And I mean, it was iconic at the
Of
time.
course.
It was a fashion statement in Boise, Idaho. She rocked it like no one can. But I don't think I ever told people that I cut hair. Maybe I did, but I don't remember ever getting asked or anything because I kept that pretty secret because I feel like I would have been cutting people's hair all the time. So I actually don't think I really cut anyone's hair besides hers. I think, yeah. I don't think anyone's.
Honestly, you were so smart for that. You were smart to keep that
Yeah.
under wraps
Mm-hmm.
because it got out that I sew. And
Oh.
girl, let me tell you, there was a sewing machine in one of my areas, like in one of the wards.
Uh-huh.
And so they let me take it home. And every single night, it was like a part-time job. Like
Oh my
after I got home
gosh.
from teaching, it's 9 p.m. I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And I got
Yeah.
every elder asking me to hem their
That's
pants.
hilarious. Oh
Yeah.
no. Yeah. Oh, the elders? Oh, heck no. I would never have let them know I cut hair. They're such
Ugh.
moochers.
Yes,
No.
they are.
Absolutely not. They're always like, sister Morris.
Sisters.
No. Yeah, I'm not cutting your hair. I'm not putting air in your tire. You can do it. No. Yeah. You're so sweet for doing that, but I would have been like, no. Absolutely not. Plus, there's always members that will do that. Like, why you?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
lots of members could have. I mean, not
Yes.
that they're like less busy, but you had important work to be doing. You couldn't be
Mhm.
hemming their pants all the time.
I was doing that in my free time. Oh, it was the worst. Oh, P-Day. Okay, tell me about Prude. Tell me how it started because it started with a different name, correct?
Yeah.
And tell me your original vision. What made you
Oh, yeah.
say, you know what? There's a lot of women in this space. There's a lot of different
Mhm.
companies and things. I want to come in because I have something to
Yeah.
offer. What did you feel
Yes.
like you had to offer?
Yes. So the name Prude, we initially it was Mykel, which is my first name. And then that really like that idea came from this idea of like designer because stepping into the space, I wanted it to be very obvious that we were not like a boutique. And so I think for me, I wanted it to be like very clearly differentiated between like boutique. And so I thought of like, okay, designer because I design the clothes. Not that I'm anywhere near this, but like Christian Louboutin, like it's a name of a person, a designer. And so that was initially why I did Mykel. But about a year in, I started having a lot of identity like issues. And I started really struggling with like, okay, I have this brand and it was growing, things are growing and it's my name. So it's like people are using my actual name a lot. And in videos and in just opinions, positive or negative, I just kind of felt like I was struggling with my whole world was already this business. And so now it's my name. And
Mm,
so I started having a hard time with that because it just felt like my name was everywhere. And I kind of wanted to be a little bit more obscure and behind the scenes. So it took me quite a while to decide to change the name. Prude is the name that I thought of quite a while ago, but it just felt a little ballsy, I guess. Like, just kind of felt like, are we really about to call a clothing line that? But prude really comes from my own experiences of being called a prude for dressing modestly. I've been called a prude by other women. I've been called a prude by men, a lot of men, a lot of good Christian men calling me a prude. And really, anytime that you have a standard, not everybody agrees. And so that was really where the name came from was it's always kind of sat with me and it's always bugged me a little bit like men or other women where it's like oh don't be a prude. So I wanted to sort of have a name that was like almost a little satire but also like kind of taking ownership back of this word that's really just used for high standards is how I've always kind of thought of it, but it's like in a negative way. So
mhm,
that's really where it all kind of transpired. And I do think Prude was a smart move because even just from like a business perspective, when people hear of Prude as a clothing line, they're like, what kind of clothes is that? Like they can't, it's like, what?
yeah.
Like if someone's like, oh yeah, like I got this shirt from Prude, like you think, what is that? And so I think that attracted a lot more audience. We had a little bit more chatter when we changed the name, and I definitely felt like it was the right move, especially because coming into the Utah space, or even just within the LDS like community of modest fashion, there's so much that already exists, and I wanted to come in and really sort of showcase maybe a different style than we've seen a lot in the past. And
Mm.
so I kind of wanted to have a name that kind of shook things up a little bit, kind of a name that was like a little bit of a statement. So I think that answers your question, right? Did I answer everything?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I have to say, the name change I love because that's what made me a big fan of yours.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think my roommate Sam had done a
Hmm.
photo shoot with you when you
Hmm.
were Mykel,
Yes,
the
and then I think she did one again when we were maybe not.
Prude.
I think she's done two with us.
I think so. But I remember I came across on Instagram
Uh-huh.
and it just said Prude, and I had to click on it. Like
That's
genuinely.
the reaction that people are getting. Yeah.
And the second that I
Hmm.
saw that it was modest fashion, I was like, this is
Hmm.
a girl after my own heart. I love
It's like almost funny, right? Like it's
yeah,
like almost a little funny where it's like, what is she doing? Like it
that.
just feels
Oh,
like very bold.
and that
Hmm.
is exactly the type of personality I have. I love
Yeah.
taking these almost like negative connotations that people have
Hmm.
towards whether it be, church or religion or just my standards and
Hmm.
almost throwing it back at them.
Hmm.
But in a very respectful, but like a cheeky
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
you know?
Yes.
This
Yeah.
cheeky way of being like, okay, you call me this, but I'm going to
Yeah.
use it in,
And build a whole business out of it and make a lot of yeah, like make a
yes.
huge community out of this word that you've called me to make me feel bad about myself. Like I totally see what you mean. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
absolutely loved it from the second I saw that name. I went to your page and then I literally stalked the crap out of your business
That's so
Instagram and I was like, And then I instantly texted my roommate Sam, where I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
wait a second, is this the company? Because I remember her talking about that
yeah,
photo shoot. She
yeah.
loved you. She loved
I
everything about
love
it.
Sam. Yeah.
She's such a sweetheart. And yeah, I was just, she said that we would get along really well. She was like, oh,
Oh,
you
that's
and
sweet.
Mykel would just be so great. Like, but I knew from the second I saw that name, I was like, this is a
Yeah.
company I can get behind.
Yeah. I think that's been the reaction. Like when we changed the name, I was like, it felt, this sounds so cheesy, but like it felt so right to me that I knew it was the right move, but I didn't know the reaction. And we just have kind of been growing enough that we sort of have not a huge audience, but we have an audience. And I think that's why I
Yeah.
was like, now is the time because I don't want to do this like a year from now, and I want to establish this. And I really think changing the name, I mean, we saw a huge influx, and a lot of it was like messages of people being like, oh my gosh, the name of this company is hilarious, especially being modest fashion. And I just think it resonates with a lot of women because, like, deep down, I think we all feel a little judged for dressing modestly. Maybe not, but I think we all deep down feel a little bit like, you're always a little worried that people are going to think you feel like you're better than them. And I think
Mhm.
that's how I always were growing up, where it's like, oh, you think you're better than me because you wear sleeves. And it's been really hurtful in the past to have, to be assumed like that. People just
Yeah.
assume that because you dress this way, you must feel this way. And
Mm.
so I think it really was just a way for me to sort of empower this word and empower, my experience that I've had dressing modestly throughout the years and struggling a little bit with it throughout the years. And I think changing the name also was just a really, I just thought it was funny. Like I think I just took it all so serious at first. And then I told my husband, I'm like, let's just do it. This is hilarious. And it's so funny because I was like, it was like Christmas and I'm like had all my family in the living room and I'm like taking a poll like what do you think about the name change, what do you think, and I really trust my sisters a lot because they're very different people, and they all were like that's hilarious, like I love that. Even my mom was like oh that's a good idea, so I'm like check, literally got back from Christmas break and it was like rebrand. So anyway, I'm really proud of it, but I also think that it resonates with a lot of women because a lot of women feel that way. A lot of women have been called a prude before, and it's like so silly. But yeah, so I'm like, okay, well, then I'm just going to make a business out of it and build a community. And so far, so good.
I love it so much. And I think in this day and age when you have to be on social media in order to promote your company truly, like
Yeah,
nowadays,
I know.
you need something that is going to catch people's attention in the way that
Mhm.
you want, but is intriguing. Like
Totally.
there's so much strategy to it. Like 2 months ago, I have kind of fallen off for a second, but I'm getting it back into it. I have
Uh-huh.
a sex educator account, but
Hmm.
I call it the Virgin Sex Educator
Oh, that's funny.
because I'm a virgin,
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah,
also like I have 5 years of schooling now that I'm getting my master's in
yeah.
sex education. But like that idea of like a virgin sex educator, like, are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
It's the play on words. Yeah.
Yes, but then also my audience, the people that I teach, are
Mhm.
majority people who got married as virgins or they are still currently a virgin. And
Right.
so and then my like slogan is if male gynecologists exist, so can I.
That's so
And
funny. What's also funny about that is it's like, when you need sex education when you're a virgin, like that is also like when you need it. Like I feel like
exactly.
experienced people don't need that kind of like it's like almost funny too, because it's like it's a little play on words, but it's also like if you really think about it, aren't they the ones that need it the most? I mean,
Exactly. That's
I
why
don't
I
know.
when I first like was fiddling around with different ideas and stuff, I did the same thing with all my friends. I was like, what do we think about the virgin sex educator? And they were like,
Yeah.
what? And then they said, well, what are
Yeah.
you gonna do when you get married one day? And I was like, well, I would still be the virgin sex educator because that's who I'm catering to. Like, I just
Yes.
so happen to
Yes.
also fit that label currently. But then they were like, oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
I love it. I think it's smart. I agree though in on social media, and that's the thing about business that I think has changed a lot with social media is people kind of need well, they don't kind of. People need connection. People almost need something to relate to, and I found
mhm.
with Prude almost like in a way that was funny because I think
Yes.
initially it was like, oh, Mykel, like, oh, it's this clothing brand, whatever. But then when it was Prude, like the reaction was so different. And I think part of that was because it's like, it's like a funny thing. And I think if you're going to have a successful business these days, at least now in marketing with the competition, there's so much competition. You need something that stands out.
Yeah.
And I think that was another reason we wanted to change it, because it was like, okay, this stands out. And I think just like you were saying with the name of your business, it's like you hear that and it's like, wait, what? Like anything that can make people kind of pause and it's like, wait, how does that work? Like that
Hmm.
is what engages people, because I think like you can have so many good names. You could come up with 100 beautiful names for a business, but it's not going to connect. And I think the name is so powerful, because when people hear that, like when they hear your business, they're like, yeah, they're like, how does that work? Like, wait, so she is the virgin or she what? Like, it's like, it's
Yes.
for that. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of have to think about it. And then people instantly have already established your business in their mind. So yeah, I think for us, it was like a little bit of a strategy, but it also was just like, again, it was switching away from that identity of like I just couldn't have my name on everything anymore. Like
Hmm.
I just couldn't. Like I was like, okay, I'm like over seeing my name on everything. And I think that also was helpful for me, because I had to compartmentalize. And maybe for you with your business you feel this way, but it's like you become so associated with things when it's your name. You can't not make it personal. It's your name. And so
Yes.
I think that also helped me mentally. It used to be like, oh, I'm Mykel and I own Mykel. And it's like, oh, I'm Mykel and I own a business called Prude. Like it just, in my brain, it made
Hmm.
sense. I have been able to completely compartmentalize. I've taken a lot more risks. And I've also, like our mocktail collection, like all these ideas that I've had of, weirdly enough, it almost felt like I had permission after we changed the name, because I wasn't taking everything so personal. It like allowed me to be like, I don't know, more daring, because it wasn't my name on it. I don't know. It almost became its own separate
Thing.
like entity, you know?
Yeah.
And I think initially it was just like, it literally was me. Like it felt like me in every conceivable way. So I also think anyone in business, I think if you're wanting to not feel like it's your whole world, then naming your business after you, like it can have good and bad, but most often, at least for me, it felt like it was hard to like disassociate and like business hat, me hat, because it was all the same thing. And that's
Yeah.
really hard to do.
I think that's incredible advice because that was going to be
Yeah.
something that I asked, like, what would you tell, like, business owners of things? I think that is
Yeah.
such good
Yeah.
advice. Okay, my next question for you. How would you describe Prude as far as a fashion line? If you're doing, your elevator pitch to people, what are they going to find on your page? I know
Yeah.
what they find because obviously I've stalked
Yeah.
your Instagram very thoroughly. But if someone has not heard of Prude and they are going
Yeah.
onto your social media, what are you hoping they find?
Oh, that's a good one. So I'm hoping that when people go on to Prude, I don't know if this is maybe the answer that I would have thought of if I thought about this for too long, but I think my initial answer is I would want people to scroll through and to see it and to be like, oh, finally. Like, finally, there is modest clothing that is a different region, like this different demographic of fashion and style. And I think when you think of modest clothing, you see something. Everyone, if I were to say Utah modest boutique, every single person would have an image in their head and we would all know what it is. We all know. And it's not a bad thing. And I want to be really clear about that. It's not that it's negative. It's just, what if that's not your style? I really, really would love for people to see our page and to be like, oh, this is different. And like, oh, kind of a little bit of a showcase where you're like, oh, wait, I don't have to wear this exact style. So it's a delicate balance, because I never want to put down another clothing line. I would never want
Yeah.
to do that. But I do feel like I would love for people to come to our page and feel like a breath of fresh air. Like, oh, this is something different within the modest fashion world.
To me, I'll just tell you, like, again, as a viewer, some
Yeah,
initial
yeah.
thoughts that I had is, and I mean this like genuinely as such a compliment, like it felt very adult. And
Mm,
here's what I mean by
yeah,
that. Like
I think
it
I know what
felt
you mean.
like it felt mature. It
Yeah,
felt, which sometimes, again, and there are some modest fashion in the boutiques and stuff that I love, and I'm super
same,
girly, and
same.
I
Hmm.
like, girl, we all be wearing it. Like there's some cute
Yeah.
stuff,
Oh, there is totally. I
but I,
shop at Bohm. Like I shop at these places. I love them. Yeah.
yes, but I think there's a difference between like cute And then
Hmm.
also like, oh, no, you're
Elegant.
like that's a woman. Elegant. That's a great word.
Hmm.
To me,
Elegant was initially the word that like kept coming to my mind. Like, why can't we
mm,
find modest fashion that's like, and I would think like, what is the word? You hit the nail on the head where it's like so much of modest fashion is very young.
yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's so cute, but like I would not look good in that. And I
Yeah.
think I wanted something that yeah, I think mature, like you said, but I think the word that kept coming to my mind was like I wanted to portray like an elegance and a timelessness, and I
Mm.
didn't want it to feel I think young is how I would describe that.
Oh yeah. Well,
But
to
yeah,
me,
yeah.
the vibes that I was catching from your website, from your Instagram
Hmm.
was, and you'll tell me if this feels accurate, but like
Hmm.
this is what I felt. So I was like,
Yeah.
this is giving like Meghan Markle, Kate Winslet,
Mm.
like it's giving
Hmm.
regal, it's giving
Hmm.
like this is something I could wear
Yeah.
to like when it says business attire, but I want to be
Hmm.
fashionable and I
Hmm.
want to feel feminine, but I also want to look, you know,
Put
commanding. And I
together.
want to, yes, I
Yeah.
want to feel like I am like a powerful woman, but still,
Hmm.
who still is feminine, who still has values. I don't know, like to me, when I saw your
Yes.
clothing run, that's what it,
Yeah, that's such a compliment. That's
yeah,
like what we were going for. And I think you described it so perfectly because, again, I would never want to put down another boutique or clothing line or whatever. like I said,
yeah, they're
obviously,
great
I'm
and they
only
have their
so
place.
yes. But for me, I think it's like something about at least how I felt like wearing modest clothing as it existed in my realm and at that time
Mm.
is like you had mentioned this, everything felt very young and still expressive, but like very young. And I felt like with Prude, I wanted something that was very like powerful. Like you were saying, like I'm a woman, I'm powerful and like bring all these things to it, but in fashion. And I know I want something that's like this is respect and powerful and all these things that I think women should be, obviously. But I think it's a way to express that in fashion and especially the pieces that we have coming out down the road, like that is exactly what was on my mind the whole time. Was like, yes, there's a place for fun pieces and obviously, but I think I really wanted to portray very statement. And I think it's just a different feeling. It's just a completely different feeling of fashion. I've had people tell me like, I think you just read into it too much, and I'm like, I probably do, but when you're running a brand and a company and designing things from scratch in your bedroom, like you have to think deep, like you have to think. And so for you to tell me like this was my initial impression, like that all comes from how I'm thinking. That comes from me in my bedroom sketching how do I want women to feel when they wear this? And I believe this, like fashion is a feeling. Like that is what it is. It's literally expression. And for me, it was like I want women to feel powerful and I want them to feel respected and I want them to feel all these things. And that's how you build a brand is you have to think about that type of stuff. So yeah, that is a huge compliment and that's definitely what I strive for. And I think with a business, especially a fashion business, especially like you really just have to think about what is the feeling. Like, what are people feeling when they wear this, when they look at this, when they see someone else wearing this? And that is really hard to do. Is really, really hard to do. But that's really been so much of the groundwork that like nobody realizes. Like, I don't think people would recognize that. They think
Yeah.
it's photography and branding. And it's like, no, you're just building a feeling, you're building an emotion. And so it's
Mm.
hard, but it's also like the best.
I love that statement. You're building a feeling. Because yeah, the
Hmm.
feeling that I got even from the photography, from the
Hmm.
models on
Yeah.
the page, was that this is the kind of woman who if you call her a prude, she'd cock her head and be like, she would not be offended by that. She'd be like, "Yeah, you can call me that
Like
if you
confident.
want."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the confidence, like,
Hmm.
sure, if that's what you want to
Hmm.
call me. Like,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
woman that gives it right back but in
Hmm.
a respectful, like, she's just not going to take crap
Hmm.
from anyone, was the vibe that I was
Hmm.
getting. And I am so
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
I think it's fantastic. This is why I love interviewing women, especially on this podcast, who have companies. I love seeing women go after their passions because there
Hmm.
is so much forethought, there's so much creativity and behind the scenes things that I think is so important to
Hmm.
understand and to know that behind these ideas is so much love and
Hmm.
desire to put
Yeah.
out something that other people are going to enjoy and that you can share with others. And I just think it's beautiful.
Mhm.
I think it's
Mhm.
incredible that we as women are capable of this. Like, I
Mhm.
think it's
Yeah. It's
amazing,
so,
you know?
yeah. Yeah. I agree.
What has been one of the most unexpected challenges of running a clothing brand? Something that you maybe didn't see coming, or just something that you're like, this was just harder than I thought it would be?
I think everything. I actually get this question. Like, I feel like people ask this a lot, and I'm like, everything, every little thing from the logo to the launch, like, you name it.
Mm,
And it was like not what I thought. But I feel like what I never expected was just the level of like pure grit
mm,
that you have to have. I think it's a mental strength. And I think that part, not that I thought it would be easy, I knew it wouldn't be. I knew that wouldn't be easy. I knew that it would be hard. But I think the most unexpected part was just the mental toll and how much of myself I had to discover and how much I had to be exposed. Because when you're running a business, and I feel like when you're doing it at this level, it's like all of your weaknesses like on display.
mm.
And I think that was something that I wasn't expecting, was like how personal running a business is, all of your interactions, how you react to things, what you do when the chips are down, what you do when things are going well, how you approach every little thing, especially when you're the founder, the boss, all this stuff. And I learned a lot about myself, and I don't think I had any idea how emotionally raw it would be and how much I would really come to know my weaknesses and how much I would really come to know my strengths as well, but mostly my weaknesses. Because I think I just thought it would be like, oh, this will be hard, but you can do it. And then it's like, no, I don't know how to handle this situation. I don't know how to handle that situation. Like, there's so much personal development. It's like unlike anything I've ever done before. And I think that still surprises me, like how
Mm.
much of my weaknesses I've had to really focus on strengthening in order to continue to run this business.
I'm very fascinated with the logistics of things. Can you run
Mhm,
me through just,
mhm.
it doesn't have to be super, involved or anything, but to go from idea, I want to start a company. Do you like what? Do you just
Yeah.
like you go get a LLC, like you register an
Mm,
LLC? How do you who's sewing the clothes? Like who's like the
right.
logistics stuff? How do you go from
Totally.
idea to here is a sold product that's being shipped to me?
I feel like it's like idea, tears, 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 tears. Oh gosh, there's so much. I think if I were to simplify it,
Hmm.
it's so hard because it's like there's so many moving parts, and I spent a good year just feeling like a chicken with my head cut off, like running around, like putting out fires, staying up all night. And so I don't know that I'm the person to ask in terms of like how to do it well, but I do know that I got through it and I
Yeah.
learned it. And I think it's the learning curve. So the logistics of it from start, I would say with the designing process is I would design something and then I would take that to my design team of people that I vetted and hired and interviewed and all that stuff. So it's my team that like I've built. I'll take that to them and I'll say, okay, what are your thoughts? And because I didn't go to fashion school, if you remember that from the intro, I went to
Hmm.
beauty school and then, I like skipped, the fashion school, but I've been sewing, my whole life and all that. So they'll tell me like, okay, that's not realistic, or yeah, you're not going to like how that looks. Like they'll give me that feedback. And then I'll go back and say, okay, I'm going to change this. And then I'll change it. Or sometimes I'm like, no, let's just do it. Like, cause that's my personality. I'm like, I think this is going to work. And I've been told no before, and then it actually worked out well. And so I've kind of had to find that balance of listening to them as professionals, but then also really trusting myself and being like, I know this will work, especially because they don't work in the modest fashion realm. So they'll be like, well, why would you put a sleeve on that? Or like, well, why would you do that? And I'm like, let's just do it. And they're like, it's not going to look as good. And I'm like, I know, but let's just do it. Then that goes through like a couple processes of logistics. And then from that, it goes to my pattern maker, who is somebody that I just hired. She's like a personal worker of mine. And this is the hard part, is I didn't go through manufacturing out of the country. That was probably the hardest part of this entire business, was manufacturing in the US, it's almost impossible. So hard. One, because the manufacturers that would take you are not taking new clients, like the ones that I was trying to work with. And then the huge scale ones want like 1,000 MOQ, so minimum order quantity, or MQO, minimum quantity order. So they'd say like, okay, we can make this, but you have to order 1,000 of them. And I'm like, I don't know if I could sell 1,000 of those. So I had to find that middle ground of a manufacturer who didn't want a ton, but also could take me on. And so that was the hardest part. We went through so many manufacturers. We had like traumatizing experiences, like losing thousands and thousands of dollars. Like
Really?
it was so bad. Like I literally talking about it, I'm like getting anxiety because it was so bad. And I did things wrong too. I did not do I mean, there's things I did wrong as well. It was a learning curve, but then the pattern maker makes everything for me, obviously, like tech pack patterns, all of that good stuff. And then sometimes I'll sew a demo if it's like simple enough, but then the manufacturer will sew a demo. They'll send it to me. We make more corrections, send it back. They make another one, send it to me, which is, by the way, this is like you pay every step. They're like, that's $100. So it's just a long process and it's an expensive one. We'll just do that over and over again until it's perfect. So like our current dress, the mocktail dress, was a year of demos, like over and over and over.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, that's why I'm so proud of it. I'm like, maybe for other people, they're like, it's not that elaborate. I'm like, you've no idea what this dress has put me through. But it's also hard when it's from scratch. Like I'm designing this. And so there's just so much of me learning as well. So
Mm.
anyway, that's just an example. So like then they would make a demo. And once the demo looks good, sometimes we'll do pre-order. Mostly we don't. And then yeah, just put an order in and then we get them. And it's hard because, they'll say like, oh, that's going to take a month so that's always hard to know how much, when something is going to be popular, things like that. And then we did, during my lowest point where I was like, I can't do this anymore, like designing, we did start partnering with the big manufacturer in the United States. And then we would start partnering with them on like collaborations. And so then I was able to have not very many, but there's some of our pieces that are actually like a partnership. So I would say like, okay, like I would find what I would want, but I'm not the one designing it from scratch. Because some things I'm like, one of our turtlenecks, I'm like, did I need to spend 6 months designing a turtleneck when they already you know what I mean? Like that
Mm.
was my biggest lesson, was like, don't already put what's out there back out there. Like that's the worst thing you can do. And so to kind of fill some of my time and help me mentally, I would kind of skip that middleman and say like, okay, I want this type of a shirt, or I want this type of a whatever. And then they would have it, obviously, because they would be manufacturers and they would make it and I wouldn't have to design. So anything that's like unique, I've designed, but some of our like more simpler things, like our cheetah skirt. It's like, I didn't go through all this process for like a cheetah skirt, because it's like, it just would be a waste of my time. And so I learned that the hard way. Right now I'm designing everything. We're not doing the partnership anymore. The vision of Prude, like moving forward, is very different than what we've done in the past, but that was just to preserve my sanity and not spend, $2,000 like getting a turtleneck in the process of being made. Like it just didn't make sense at the time. So anyway, that answers your question. But then once we get the product, we do the photo shoot, and that's kind of how it goes. Obviously there's so much going on in between that, but
Oh,
for the
yeah.
most part, that's like kind of how it all should happen.
I find this so fascinating. Like,
It's crazy.
genuinely. Okay, so you're saying you have this team, you have the manufacturers.
Mhm. Mhm.
This is going to be the stupidest question. But, like, how do you find them? Are you Googling them? Like,
Oh,
how do you find these
trial and
people?
error. A lot of research. I mean, you can look up like US manufacturers. It's just getting in with them is really hard. Getting them to take you on is really hard. I remember initially I had put out like an Indeed. Is that what that is?
Uh-huh.
Indeed job application for manufacturers, because there's a lot out there, and we got like thousands of applicants. And that led me down the wrong road, because it was like, oh my gosh. And then I realized like, oh, they're actually not the one and they're not the one to work with. So that was the hardest part for me, was like finding someone reliable. We had times of, manufacturers and people who would send us batches and batches of product back that was like all messed up. And I didn't know, so it's like, okay, we just lost $5,000 worth of product. And then we're just out that, you know, like, and then we would just like
Oh.
fire them. Like it was really bad, really. But again, it was me not knowing. Like I trusted everyone. I'm like, oh, you're a manufacturer in the US. And then it was like, why does my stuff look like, you know, so then we have to pitch, like scratch all of it. Those were the worst times. Those were the times where I'm like, I'm literally cannot do this one more day. But our manufacturer now, we vetted and we worked with them initially in just a small way, and then kind of kept building that relationship with them. Small things, they wouldn't make everything, but they would make some things for us. And then now they pretty much do full time. And then we also, actually, this week I'm interviewing another manufacturer that I got from my pattern maker. So she messaged me and was like, hey, there's a manufacturer in the US. They're phenomenal. I do all their pattern work. Like they're exceptional quality. And she knows them very well. I didn't know who they were. And so she like sent me their contact, and then, you know, they were like, oh, we would love to help out. And they do larger scale manufacturing than what we currently have. So that was like the biggest blessing to have them, to have her be like, I've already vetted this person. I make all their patterns. Like they're phenomenal. That
Mhm.
was like, okay, like this is amazing. Doesn't get better than that because of how much I've struggled. So researching manufacturing is probably one of the hardest and most like grueling, intense processes, I think, of owning a business and doing things in the US. It's also really hard when, you know, we talked to manufacturers in China, and we did all that obviously initially, just looking everything. And so when we were in the very early stages, and I mean, I was getting quoted like $5 to make something, and then in the US I was getting quoted 30. Like manufacturing in the US is extremely expensive, extremely. Yeah, it's like 2 to 3 times more than in China. That's why everybody goes there. But that's a whole other thing of why we didn't want to do overseas manufacturing. But that was another thing too, where it's like, why did I have to have this standard of manufacturing in the US? Because now I'm like, not regretting it, but it was like, this would be so much easier, because we had a lot of manufacturers in China that had reached out and would have done it so cheap, so fast. They don't even think that they sleep. Like they work so fast. And in the US, they're like, we'll get that to you in 6 months. And then in China, they're like, we'll have it in 2 weeks. And you're like, oh my gosh. So there's a reason that people go and manufacture there. But for personal reasons, we didn't want to do that. But yeah, it's really, really hard to find manufacturers. It's the hardest thing. And I think if you're going to manufacture in the US, it just is a whole other ballpark. It's not for the faint of heart at all.
Wow. Oh, I feel like I just learned so much just then.
Yeah, a
Thank you for
lot. Yeah.
that. Thank you for that. No, genuinely, because something that I personally want my listeners to get out of this podcast, if anything,
Yeah.
is the reality of going after
Mhm.
your dreams. Not
Oh, yeah.
only like encouragement to do it, but to show that it's possible. But I also think it's really, really important to show, like, again, kind of the logistical side of like things you need to be thinking about, that it's not just going to be go
Mhm.
from like idea to like, girl, it's just going to like fall into place.
I hate motivational talks because they're like
Yeah.
so fake. You're like, no, I'm gonna die. I
Yeah.
cannot do this one more day. And then they're like, if you can see it, you can achieve it. And I'm like, literally, I can't even see it. I literally can't even see it. There is no light, nothing. There's no tunnel. I'm not even in the tunnel. I haven't even gotten to the tunnel. Like, I felt that. And I think that's what resonates a lot about the business with our followers is like, I really, really tried to showcase a lot of that realness. And
Mhm.
for me, even to give back, because I was so inspired by people that would just say, like, you know, kind of the ground up, you know, because sometimes you hear stories and you're like, okay, like your parents invested $5 million in your business. Like, of course it was successful, you know. And I
Right.
think for me, I really wanted to show people, like, you know, not that it's bad that parents invest in all that, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I would hear stories of like the exception a lot of the time. And you hear those stories of like, I made $1 million overnight. And I think that type of stuff can be really damaging. I think it can be
Yeah.
inspirational, but for me, at least when I was actually trying to do it, it was very damaging because it set very unrealistic expectations for me. And it made me feel like I was doing something wrong when that didn't happen. And those are the stories you hear about because, yeah, they're really inspirational. They're really amazing. But it's also not the reality for like 99% of business owners. And, you know,
Mhm.
I built this company literally from scratch, from sketches in my bedroom. And I just want to make sure that there's always that transparency that like I really felt like I built this business from bottom, like ground up, built and built and built. And I mean, it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done, but I think that we need to have more conversations and there needs to be more of these types of things because, especially on social media, you see a lot of overnight success or things are portrayed that way, and I would see stuff like that. And I got down a really bad path of like comparing myself, and my husband would be like, you don't even know, like, you just have no idea, like, if they're, I don't want to say, because I don't want to like make it seem like I'm trying to call people out, but when you see success too quickly, I think there's always, not everything's always shared. And not that people don't have overnight success, but from my experience of starting a clothing line and having a business, every day was hard. There just was not a lot of like wins for like the first 6 months. Like I actually felt like nothing felt positive for the first six. And now I feel amazing. I'm so glad we did it. And I'm so glad we got through it. I'm so glad of what it's growing into. And it's just been, I have so much gratitude for just everything. But I would be lying if there wasn't so many months where I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I can't do this anymore. And I think people need to see that because when you go into business, anything, obviously, but when you go into business and you're reading these stories about people who like made $100,000 their first month, like on TikTok, and it's like, that's so great for you. That's amazing. But if you go into a business with that as your expectation, you have no idea what's coming. You have no idea. And I don't want to portray it like nobody has success early because I think even us, like we're a year and a half into business and I feel like we're really in a good spot. And I think for some people that would be really fast. But then I know people who started businesses and within 6 months they were like making what we're making. So I think it's just, anyway, that's a whole tangent. But I agree with you. I think there has to be more honesty and raw conversations because I think when people hear the best of the best, it's easy to be like, oh, that's going to be me. And when it's not you, because it's probably not going to be you, just statistically speaking, you're going to
Yes.
stop, you're going to give up. And that just doesn't serve you to read all that stuff and see that. It's inspirational from the outside, but when you're a business owner trying to do similar things, for me, it was just very like damaging, I think, for my
Yeah.
own reasons, not because I did anything wrong, but because of my expectations,
Yes, which that's where I think I differ in what I find inspiring because the ones where
Mm,
it's these overnight successes, yeah, I'm always that person that's like, is that true? Did that really happen
mhm,
overnight? Like, because I completely agree with you. What's super inspiring to me is seeing the perseverance when
mm,
it doesn't happen right away. That is
mhm,
so inspiring to me to
mhm,
see women figure it out
mhm,
and just basically like be up against a wall and be like, okay,
mhm,
where are you gonna go? Because it feels like you have nowhere else to go and you feel
mm.
trapped, like there's nothing else to do and you want to give up.
Yeah,
I
totally.
I find it so incredibly admirable. The grit, using that word again, like the
Yes.
grit that
Oh.
people have
Mhm.
to be pushed up against that wall and then, figure out another way.
Yeah, literally, that's how I felt. Like it was always like, okay, what's another way? Like, how are we gonna do this? And I think those moments for me where I had times where it's like with our manufacturer, where it's like thousands of dollars down the drain, we now have nothing, like everything's ruined. Those were the moments. And I remember like crying in the bathroom or like crying to my husband. And I remembered having sort of like this voice in my head that was like, these are the moments that most people would quit.
Yeah.
These are the times that honestly, even a sane person would probably get out of Dodge at this point, call their losses. And I think those were the moments where I'm like, these are the moments that you have to push through to get to where you want to be. And I remembered like that was my motivation of getting through those hard times. And I get asked this question where it's like, but how do you do it? How do you get through the hard times? And I think grit, honestly, I think is you literally just have to keep going. It is so hard. But I also think in those moments you have to call those moments out. Like I remembered audibly like even saying to myself like this is the turnaround point for 99% of people. This is the give up point. This is like most people would be throwing in the towel at this point. And if you can call it out, then you can establish, okay, is this the point where you call in the towel? And I would be like, no, I can't. And then it's like, all right, then you have to figure it out. And so I think it's really powerful. And I think it helped me a lot to build confidence, because now I'm like, I don't know if that there's anything, I mean, knock on wood, I'm like, I feel like I handle, I mean, there's things I never even thought I'd be able to work through and figure out that I did. And it builds that confidence. And I think with women or people in business,
Mhm.
it really, preys on your insecurities a lot. And you have to, like I mentioned it earlier, you really have to expose your weaknesses, and you have to kind of find out what you're made of a little bit. It always feels like right when you're done, like just push a little harder. Like, it's so cliche, but I really believe in it. And there's a book, it's called Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've ever read that book.
Oh, of course.
I love that book. It like changed my life and like changed my business, because I loved this concept. And for those listening who haven't heard of that, like the analogy, and I'm going to butcher it, but the analogy is like if you took a sledgehammer like to a statue and you were just chipping, like hitting it, you might not even see a chip initially, like a hammer, maybe not a sledgehammer, but like a hammer. And you went to like hit a stone statue or like a rock, and you went to hit it and hit it. You could probably hit that like 300 times and maybe nothing would happen. But then you hit it like 301 and then it cracks open, because it's like internally you can't see the things that are going on. But I remember that, where it's like you have to keep going through that, because eventually it breaks. Eventually you make a breakthrough. And, it's funny to say, but even like I talked about dating, where it was like, I almost did not go on that date with my husband, because I was like, I can't do it. I cannot do one more awkward conversation. I cannot talk about the same weird stuff. Like, I cannot do this. And then it was like and it was hard. I was 15 minutes late and I canceled 3 times. But I went, and then I found my husband and we got married, and he's the best person I've ever met. And it's like, it's that same concept of like, you just have to keep going, because you really never know when you're right, when you just have no idea. Like, using my husband as that analogy, like, driving to the date that day, I had no idea. I couldn't even have fathomed, I couldn't have guessed, but I went, and then ended up being that. You just have no clue of knowing. And I think that was with the business how I really tried to keep that framework. And it's what got me through the hardest months of starting up the business, was just saying like, okay, this is it. This is the hard part. Like, this is the part that most people would walk away. Are you going to walk away? And if you're not, then you got to keep going. And it's not
Mm.
easy, but you keep going, and then you figure it out. And I found another manufacturer, and I cut my losses of thousands and thousands of dollars, and I cried for a week, and then I got over it. And then we moved on, and now things are better than ever, and they're growing and evolving. And so anyway, that was a tangent, but that's kind of the thing that I just wish people knew more. Like, you just keep going, and you find those moments of where people would quit, and you don't quit, and you just continue. And there were literally times where I would tell my husband, am I insane? Like, is this crazy? Because is there a reason nobody's done it this way? Like, I remember thinking that, where I'm like, there's a reason that like only 1%, and this is actually true, only 1% of manufacturers are in the United States. 1% are here. And I'm like, yeah, there's a reason for that, because it's like almost impossible to do it. And I felt really crazy sometimes. I felt like you go through all the emotions, but you just literally wake up again and you keep doing it. And there were days where I literally felt like one Groundhog's Day, but also like crazy. I mean, there were times that I'm like, am I insane for trying to do this? A little bit I probably was, but I think that you really, really just have to keep going, and you have to be smart. It's not just like do the same thing over and over again. Like, you have to pivot, you have to think, you have to say, okay, maybe this wasn't the best idea, but I'm going to do this, and I don't think it's like just like bullheaded, like just keep going. You need to evolve. You need change. Like, we made a lot of changes. We don't operate even close to how we used to operate. Anyway, I just think that it's important. It's important for people to know that. And there are those points of wanting to give up. And those are the moments I think that matter the most in the long term.
Oh, I absolutely agree. A lot of times on the pod, I make jokes and stuff where I'm like, girl, like, give up, like, it's all, but for all that stuff, it's like things that don't matter. I always say quit TV shows and books once you don't like it. But I think my whole idea, my whole idea behind that is because I'm like, because you need to be putting your energy towards things that are going to
Mm.
like build you up. And I don't know, for me, when it has come to those questions of am I crazy? I think if you're asking that, like you're going all in on something
Yeah.
that you were meant to do. Like
That's funny.
truly, there's
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
at least for me, I can only speak to my own experience, but
Hmm.
I sold everything to move here to Australia. Like I left my career
Hmm.
job and I was like, what am
Hmm.
I doing? But
Yeah. Been
there
there.
was there was this undeniable part of me. And to me, because I'm religious, I feel like it was my soul. It was the part of me that lived with God. It's the part of me that I've always been that was really speaking to me and reminding me that I have a bigger purpose and I have to
Mm,
really stretch myself. And I can't see where this is going to lead, but I know.
mm,
I know it's this intuition, whatever you want to call it, this
mm-hmm,
deep sense of
mm-hmm,
longing, of knowing that I am meant to do something. I have found that once it gets to the point you can't explain it to people around you, like when people would ask me why, or like even my parents, like these people that love me and that really want to support me, like they're trying. But they're like,
mm-hmm,
"Can you explain to me why you want to do this?" Or like what and
mm,
I was like, I don't have the words for you. It doesn't make sense on paper. It doesn't.
mm,
Everything that I'm telling you, you would probably think that, why does it matter that much or what? But I can't deny that this is something I feel like I have to
mm,
do and that I can't give up on this because if I give up on it, I'm
mm-hmm,
giving up on me. I'm giving
mm-hmm,
up on something that my soul wants to do and that I
mm-hmm,
feel like God is helping me to do. I'm learning things about myself that I would not be able to learn in another way. My heavenly parents need me to go after this because there are lessons that I personally, my soul needs
mm-hmm,
to learn that
mm-hmm,
is on this path. And yeah,
mm-hmm,
it's not going to make sense to other people because
mm-hmm.
this isn't their path,
Right.
you know? So, anyways, it's in those moments where, yeah, when you're like crying in your room and you're like, am I crazy? When you ask yourself, am I crazy? But you feel like you can't give up. I think
Mm,
that those are the
mm-hmm,
incredible moments where, for me, that's when I start my prayer, and I'm like, okay,
mm-hmm,
there is something here. There is
mm,
a
mm-hmm,
purpose that I have that is going to somehow, in some way, be fulfilled, at least in part, through this
mm-hmm,
journey. And I think that that is so incredible when you can get to that point. And I think that
mm-hmm,
that's what, at least for me, propels me forward when I'm up against a
mm-hmm.
wall.
Yeah, yeah.
So I
I
find it
love that.
beautiful to hear other people's experiences of like, yeah, no, everyone else would
Yeah.
quit, and I see why. But
Yeah.
I couldn't. I can't
Yeah.
because there's just this part I that I know I can do it. I'm gonna find a way because there has to be a way, you know?
Yeah. Yes. My husband would say that to me sometimes because I would say to him, like in those moments, like I feel like anybody else would be smart enough to know when to call it. Like I feel like anyone else would like know. And he would be like, but this isn't for them. Only you can do this. And speaking spiritually, I really love what you said when it's like when you really know that it's what you're meant to do. That is a game changer because I've also done things that I have been on that path and I've had promptings and I've had moments where it's like, that's not for you, that's for someone else. I've done that. I was an influencer for like, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I was an influencer for like 10 years and I was like full time influencer. Like I just did it all the time in building and, money was good and all this stuff. And I loved it. And I remembered for like a year having this feeling that was like this isn't it for you and I pushed against that. So I also think you have to rely on those moments of being able to say like is this the path, because I also think you need to consider is this the path, because there are some
Mhm.
people who could start a clothing line and be on a path and God could tell them like not your path, that's not for you, I've got something else for you. And you could listen to this podcast and be like, no, Mykel says to keep pushing. That's different because, and I
Mhm.
should have prefaced with that, so I'm so glad you brought that up because it's like I felt that in my soul for about 2 years, actually longer, but that I needed to do this and I pushed it off and I pushed it off and I pushed it off and I knew it and I really couldn't like resist it anymore. Like, and I wanted to, of course, but I think that's also the difference is when you're walking in the spirit and when you're trying to follow the spirit, I think that's a whole other level. I really, really felt like I was the one that needed to do this. And I think there's a lot of other phenomenal people who will do other things and have done similar things. And everybody has a place, but I knew and I still know that like this was mine, like this was my path. And so I think it's really, really important that when you're deciding like what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, whether it's business or anything, you do have to have, in my opinion, spiritually speaking, spiritual roots. Because if you're just out doing something that makes no sense to anyone, including yourself, you might not be on the right path. And I think that's very important to distinguish that, like for me, I'd had so much confirmation that this was the path. This was it. For whatever reason, for however long, this was my journey. I knew it so well. That also carried me through those times of like, I can't do this because like my husband would say like, but you like, this is for you though. Like all those people that would have turned around, like that they're not you, like this is for you. This was your path. You were meant to do this. Nobody could do Prude like I do Prude. Like that's why it's my company. And nobody can do your business like you can do your, that's why it's yours. It belongs to you. And all these other amazing companies and businesses, like they belong to that person for a reason. So I love that you brought that up because I just think that that's also an important thing is like, am I crazy? Those types of things. Of course, you're going to ask that, but you have to have something to fall back on. And
Oh,
I think for
yes.
me, no way could I have gone through those moments if I didn't have that confirmation of like, no, this is the right thing. I was meant to do this for whatever reason. I think I used to get very caught up on like, oh, I want to do what they're doing. And I think it's really, really important to realize like, maybe you should, maybe you have a branch of that tree, but also maybe your path is actually over here and that is for you. And so I just think that, you know, when you're thinking about starting a business, going on any type of a path, I think you really have to be prayerful, be spiritual, and think, okay, what is my path? And it's very, 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 very important not to compare your path to someone else's. Because there was a time where I thought influencing was like gonna be my forever full-time job. And now I like just so not for me. And I didn't feel peaceful when I was doing that. But doing the clothing line every single day, I have peace and I know I'm doing the right thing. Don't really know why, don't really know where it's going to lead, but I know that. And it's like, that is what you have to follow.
I resonate with so much of what you're saying. And just a few thoughts, like a few things that came to mind.
Yeah.
I'm a very image-based person. So anytime I hear
Mm.
anything imagery, I'm like, ooh, my brain, like,
Mm-hmm.
that's how my brain works. So when you
Same.
said you could be the same branch on that tree, but so I
Yes.
instantly thought of a tree and just all the individual leaves that are on it. And I don't know, that was just such a beautiful image to me. And then I kept thinking about when you were saying, don't compare yourself to others in
Mm-hmm.
your path. I think so often we think that it has to be a leadership path, but I think of
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I think of, your pattern maker, how much
Mm-hmm.
she
Mm-hmm.
has to be on that path in order to we
I know what you
find
mean.
our path, then we find all of the people that like almost like when you have gears and they go
Mm-hmm.
together, that once you get the center gear to turn, then all of the other
Mm-hmm.
gears that are around it, like in a clock, they all
Mm-hmm.
turn together. And I think there's this feeling, this sense that yes, this is my gear, that and once you get it placed in,
Mm.
you're like, this is where I'm supposed to be, then all of these other gears where other people are in their place as well of like their path,
Yes.
you all of a sudden you can help each other and you can create
Mm-hmm.
something bigger and more than you could even just on your own. That
Mm-hmm.
you're this vital piece in a clock,
Mm-hmm.
but you're gonna find other gears that you click into, and then their path is gonna
Mm-hmm.
help you with your path.
Totally.
And I think it's so beautiful that that's how it's all designed, you know?
Well, yeah,
And
and you think about God is like the author of diversity for a reason. And I think, and I'm going to make a little snide comment about Utah here, but like I feel like in Utah, everyone's trying to like be the same person. And I
yeah,
get that. I feel that way where it's like, oh, should I be wearing that? Should I be doing that? so many people in Utah, in my opinion, are trying to literally be carbon copies of each other. And to your analogy, that would be like if everybody's trying to be the steering wheel. And it's like, you're not going to go anywhere if everyone's the steering wheel. Like, you're not going to
Yes.
get anywhere. Like, someone needs to be the engine, someone needs to be the brake, somebody needs to be all these things. And I think
Mhm.
I really feel like one of the lies that Satan tells us is like that we all should be one thing or we all should be like the same. And I think that that's often rooted in like an insecurity. But
Mm.
I think
Oh,
that sometimes that's a little bit of like Satan's lie, you know, where it's like everybody needs to look the same, act the same, wear the same size. Like, that is not really God's way. Like, he created diversity, every single person to be different. We all have individual talents. And if we all are trying to have the same talent and the same thing, it's just not gonna, we're not gonna evolve and go anywhere. And we also might not have, like I mentioned before, like purpose. If I'm chasing someone else's dream, that's not gonna bring me purpose and fulfillment.
oh, I completely agree with you. The when you were saying about the car and different things, I have this friend
Mm-hmm.
named her name's Jen Blossel. She's a
Mm-hmm.
singer
Mm-hmm.
and she's incredible. She's amazing. She's so unique. I think
Mm-hmm.
to the outside view, I think she's very unique, but she is so authentically herself. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what makes her such an incredible person, such a force for connection. I'm obsessed with her, like her
Mm-hmm.
style, her everything. Well, anyways, one time she was talking about this new song that she was writing, and she was like, in the body of Christ, she was just going on about how, yeah, everyone in Utah like always wants to be like the heart, like they want to be this super important, vital feature. But she was like, but you know what? I've
Mm-hmm.
never connected with that, and I've never fit in
Mm.
with that. And she was like, can't I just be the fingernail? And she said,
I love that.
and then she said this, and it's literally been so profound to me, where she was like, because the fingernail's on the outside, right? Like, and it's kind of this forgotten thing. And I like that it can be painted a bunch of different colors. And she said, and it's the first thing, like when you go out to reach to touch somebody else, that's what touches
Mm.
first.
Mm-hmm.
And just that imagery of, she was like, I want to be
Mm-hmm.
someone that like can connect and touch with other people immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, so yeah, I want to be the fingernail on the body of Christ. And
Oh, I
like,
love that.
and I just thought, what a unique perspective. What
Mm-hmm.
what a fun way to look at it. And it also had the
Yeah.
humor to it. But
Yeah.
yeah, this idea that every part is important, and you need to
Mm-hmm.
find what what fits for you, what calls to your soul
Mm-hmm.
that feels so undeniably right, even when
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But at night, when you're alone, there's just a part of you that's like, but I feel it. I feel it deep
Mm-hmm.
inside me that I'm
Mm-hmm.
on the right path and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think that when you'll find your people, the other gears, the other whatever you want to say, like whatever analogy you want to
Mm-hmm.
use, that
Mm-hmm.
when they're following their path, you're gonna link up and you're gonna be able to help each other. And I think the way that God designed it is incredible and amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved hearing your experiences. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. Anytime.
Do you have some hills
Oh,
for me?
yes. I feel like I might have already said I have two. I wrote down two of them. First is I already mentioned this, but like fashion is literally just a feeling. That is all it is. Like what you wear, it's an like outward expression of how you feel inside.
Mm.
And I feel like you cannot make it anything else. That is literally what it is. And then the other one that I wrote down, I don't think this is controversial, but maybe it is. I feel like modesty is really just boiled down to your motivation. And I think in the LDS church, there's like so much like, what is modesty? What's the line? What's the mark? And you look at other Christian religions and they don't really have a lot to say. They're like, oh, well, maybe they wouldn't wear a crop top or a mini skirt, but like they would wear with things without sleeves. Like, I think there's a lot of like, what is modesty? A lot of people, especially in the LDS church, have based modesty off of other things that they're like, okay, this must be modesty because I have to cover this, so that's modest. But it's interesting because then when like this thought came to me so much after they changed the new garments, the LDS garments are now different. And that was the pinnacle of modesty. So like that's what modesty was because you're just trying to cover that. But then they changed it and they're like, oh, actually you, and it's like, wait a second, does that mean we should be wearing tank tops or does that, and it's like all these questions, right? And so I think when you really think about like the spirit and the nature of modesty, and this is way deep, obviously, but I think modesty really is more about your motivation than it is about the hemline or because I think we can get very specific. I remember growing up, it was like 2 inches above the knee was like, that's the cutoff. Pass. If you are above 2 inches above the knee at girls' camp, you are officially unmodest. And it's like, okay, but what about 3 inches or like 2.5? Like, where is modesty? And I struggled with that so much as a teen, especially as an adult. People were like minds blown because we're like, wait a second, it's modest now. But it never wasn't. I mean, I don't know. I got to be careful saying that because I'm not trying to give doctrine, but it never really wasn't. It was just like, that's what we based everything off of. And for some people, maybe they are more comfortable showing no, I don't know, covering their shoulders. I don't know. It's personal. But yeah, modesty is about your motivation. It's about your intention. It's not as much about the hemline. So those are my two hills. I try to think of more, but I really couldn't. Those are my two biggest passions in life is modesty and fashion. So that's what you got. That's all I had.
No,
But
they're
those are my
perfect.
hills. I'll die. Yeah.
You lay it down your life. And that's why I asked that question, because I love to see what
Mhm.
people are passionate about. Girl, this has been so wonderful.
Thanks for listening to our thoughts on life, because this has been Life According to Nikki. I'm from Michigan originally, but when people mention cities, I don't like know them. Like unless it's like Ann Arbor, Detroit, but like in Utah, you name any city and people from Utah know the city. Any little tiny town, like Nephi, they're like, "Oh yeah, I've been to Nephi." Like it's just so funny to me that I'm like I literally know where you grew up. Like yeah, if you live in Utah long enough, it's like you know everywhere, I swear.
That's actually so true, and I've never thought about that.
Yeah, it's like
I've,
so true. It's like the smallest, biggest town in the whole world. It's
okay,
so weird.
girl, I'm on the other side of the world. So I'm
Yes.
constantly having to explain Utah to people who have never heard of it. Like,
That's
never heard of
hilarious.
it. So I'm like, you don't understand. Because they'll ask me things about the US. And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, okay, well, you need to understand something first and foremost, that Utah is different than the rest of
Yeah.
the United States of America. And I'm not just saying this. If you are from the US of A, and you
Uh-huh.
say to someone, "Oh, I'm from Utah," like
Yeah.
that's gonna spark a reaction in them
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they recognize how different we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because not only the cultural, religious, aspect, but like genuinely this thing that you're talking about, where it's like
Yeah.
almost the whole state feels like a small town.
Mm-hmm. I know. I describe it to my husband that way. I'm like, it's literally like it's the biggest small town you'll ever go to. And that's one of the reasons we moved here. Like, I moved here for my business was because it's like the networking here, it's insane. You're never like more than one person away from anyone in Utah. It is like truly what's the word where it's like, it's not Roman Empire, but it's like, what's the one thing that like you just do not understand? Like, you can't even put into words. And for me, it's how Utah is a small town, even though it's like so big. It's so tiny. You go to like LA, you go to these really big places or like a lot of businesses, like you don't know anyone. It's not small. It's not a small network. It's a giant network. And you come to Utah and it's like, it's so big, so many people, but everyone knows everyone. Like I know so many famous or popular people in Utah and I don't know why. I don't know how. I met them somewhere or like the gym that we go to. It's like there's so many people. I'm like, "Oh, I know who that person is. Oh, I know." You will never find that anywhere else. Like it literally I could have a whole podcast episode about Utah because I'm not from Utah. I mean, I just moved here about 5 years ago, so I'm not familiar with it. And I explain it to my husband all the time. And he doesn't get like the networking side. Like you'll never have that anywhere else, like
Mhm.
ever. I mean, Arizona, I live there. It's a little bit like that. But even then, yeah, it's like one of the biggest wonders of my whole life is how Utah is so connected. I can't even. I literally cannot even.
I love that we're talking about this because this is actually like a special interest of mine. I love that you said you're one person away from somebody big
Oh,
or yeah,
everyone.
that is
Uh-huh.
so true. That's gospel doctrine right there. Like that's how
Yeah.
true it is. I also think that the culture plays into the networking because we're all so willing to help
Oh.
one another.
Mm-hmm.
It's this idea that
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, well, I could just like ask someone for help.
Yeah.
I could ask for that
Yes.
connection. I think there's
Mm-hmm.
less of an insecurity in us as people to ask for
Mm-hmm.
a favor or to ask for someone to help us, which is
Yeah.
why I think that's why the
Yeah. No,
networking's
I
so
get it.
good.
I get it. And I also think the church plays such a big role because it's like my husband and I were at church the other day and Elder
Oh yeah.
Renland, yeah. He like walks in and his daughter is in our ward. And I'm like, what? Like, it's just so foreign to me. Like, it's so
Mm,
inconceivable because I grew up in just such a different world. And I think that's where like the church plays such a big role in that. And I also think even a lot of like big companies, a lot of big people, like I know multiple people who go to church with the owners of all these humongous companies in Utah, and it's like, I
mhm.
think the church, in my opinion, is what networks these like kind of like everyone's so approachable or accessible, and you don't really get that anywhere else. And like you would never go to LA and it's like, oh yeah, like because there's no common denominator, like nothing's bringing everyone together. I think
Yes.
that's what it is, because it's like all the people I know here, it's like somehow through church. Like
Mm.
I go to church with someone who's like the sister of like this famous person, or just so much of that. And I think it's so unique. I explain it to people, but you can't explain it. You have to
Mhm.
experience it. You have to live it. You have to know it. And my husband, he moved here in middle school, but I always am on this tangent with him about it. And he's like, he just doesn't get it. I mean, he gets the networking, but he just doesn't see it from the outside as much. So,
Right.
anyway, tangent over, but I 100% agree with you. It is a different world in Utah. It is so unlike anywhere else. And I've been a lot of places and traveled a lot, and nothing will ever be like Utah. Nothing. And I can't even describe why. Like, that's why, but like, I just can't. It's
It's
so unique.
Yes, it's everything. It's all of it.
Yeah.
It's all of these tiny nuanced things that you're talking
Yeah.
about where people are approachable. You feel like you're on the same level, even though someone could be this big head of a major corporation
Yeah.
and company, millions and millions of dollars, but
Yeah.
you're like, oh, but that's like sister so and so.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's
I
my girl
know.
in Relief Society. Like what you're talking about, that
Literally.
like that's Cheryl. Like
Literally, one of our neighbors brought by like this hot chocolate, and I was like, why does this look so familiar? I forgot the name of it. And my husband's like, oh, they started that hot chocolate company. Like, it's huge, it's nationwide, it's like, well, it's global. And I was
oh
like,
my
they started this hot chocolate company? He's like, yeah, you didn't know that? I'm like, it's just that type of thing too. Or I have a friend who's like, she lives by the owner of Sodalicious, and she's like, oh yeah, that's my neighbor. I get free Sodalicious all the time. And I'm like, it's just, you do not get that. And I think it's just, yeah. If someone were to ask me, like, how do you describe Utah? Somehow everybody knows everybody, but
Mhm.
people are like famous, but you'll see them at church or at Vasa, because I see everyone at Vasa. Like, it's just nothing's exclusive. Like, I don't know. It's like it just blew up and there's no hierarchy. Like, I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to make the
Yes.
whole podcast about this, but it's a passion of mine.
Oh, no, no, no.
It's a passion topic.
This is exactly what my pod is for these
Yeah.
types of conversations
Yeah.
because I need to educate the general public. Like I need
Hmm.
people to understand
Yeah.
how cool and great Utah is, but also it's a phenomenon. It is
Hmm.
something that has to be
Hmm.
experienced for
Yes.
yourself. I mean, I'll explain certain cultural parts of it. The whole Sodalicious soda shop thing is its own podcast episode.
Yeah. I
Actually, that
know.
this literally
The
just sparked an idea.
cookies,
Oh my
the
gosh, the
cook you could
cookies.
talk about like Utah specifics, like the cookie places. It's like, why does everyone pay $12 for a cookie? And like, you don't find that. I mean, now they're branching out, but like the soda, I mean, soda places are branching out too, but that all was a Utah original. That was all Utah.
So
It's so weird.
here's my last point on this whole thing is I bring this
Yes.
up all the time with
Hmm.
again people who have never heard of our church, they've never heard of Utah, and I'm like, yep, you
Oh,
heard of Stanley Cups? Yeah, you want to know where that Why that got big? Because Utah
Yeah.
made it big. You ever heard
Uh-huh.
of a Wallace? You want to know why that got
Yeah.
big? Because Utah made it big.
I
You ever heard of
literally have
this?
one.
No, literally, I was like, like, you ever heard of this? The
Mm-hmm.
reason, the things that have like massively
Yeah.
exploded on to
Mm-hmm.
the general public because there is a difference between, Kim Kardashian pushing a product, right? To,
Yes.
I would say, not everyone's buying that product. Like, I don't know of what these
Yeah.
big major celebrities are pushing. I don't know the
Yeah.
trends of, like the high-end people. I'm a regular
Yes.
girl,
Yes.
but Utah dominates the regular girl space
Mm-hmm.
because it's
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 so true.
smart, entrepreneurship-minded people,
Mm-hmm.
women
Yeah.
especially, that are like, no, I have something to say, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it is encouraged in a lot of
Yeah.
ways that we don't recognize as often, but it's like, no, women are side hustling the crap out of themselves in Utah and they are momming it up and they are incredible
Mm-hmm.
to the point that their side hustle becomes the main breadwinner. And
Mm-hmm.
in like so many
Mm-hmm.
cases, that's so common.
I know.
And it's like this beautiful passion project born out of creativity, beauty, and
And like
it's
maybe boredom, maybe like a little bit of
yes,
like stay-at-home mom like craze. Like they're like, I have to do something. Like they're yeah, no, it's so
yes.
true.
I love it.
I couldn't agree more.
And I just think it's amazing that I'm like, no, the Utah women, the influencer. Why do you think so many people are influencers in Utah? Because it's
So many.
amazing what they can do and
Utah
their
really
life.
founded influencers. Like
Yes,
that
we did.
actually might be maybe I should bring that up at the end for Hills I'll Die On, but I really think Utah, they really brought the influencer world. Like I really feel like it started in Utah. I don't know, I don't have the information and facts on that, but I would be willing to bet anything that it from I mean that's everyone I knew that was like an influencer was from Utah and like it's so true.
Yes.
The power of Utah and the influence of Utah is unreal. It's like actually terrifying. It really is a little scary. I
Absolutely.
embrace it,
Oh,
but I'm also like equally petrified of it.
everything that you said, yes, amen, snaps to that.